Hello everyone, welcome back to another video in our conversations series. My name's Daniel Oxley, I'm the CTO at Armadillo Managed Services, and as you would have seen from the previous videos, these are my interview technical conversations, no sales, no slides, straight to the point that I have with some absolutely fantastic people. And it's been a real privilege to meet some very smart people working at some really great companies, and today will be absolutely no different. So I'm here joined with Jim Taylor from RSA Security. Jim, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And Dan, just to say what a pleasure it is to spend a little time with you and share some knowledge and wisdom with the audience. So, Jim Taylor, I'm the Chief Product and Technology Officer for RSA. It's a big fancy title. What it really means is I'm in charge of the technology at RSA. So anything to do with the strategy, the products that we build, what RSA produces and ships to the market is my responsibility. I also have responsibility for all things technology at RSA. So IT reports into me, the CISO reports into me. So anything to do with technology, I love to describe it as in the world of RSA, if we were a restaurant, I'm the chef in the kitchen. So that's my role with RSA. I've been with RSA for just over 3 years now, but have been in the cyber industry, particular focus on identity, for close to 30 years now. So worked my entire career, mostly on the technology and product side in the cyber industry.
Oh, fantastic. And you've tapped into what's one of my loves is food, when your reference to the head chef there. No, fantastic. So look, thanks very much for joining. One thing I should call out, RSA, I mean, I first knew as RSA, as I'm sure many people did, of the tokens. And we're not going to be talking tokens today. They always fascinated me. Having a sort of a curious technical mind, was I first learned, when I was given these tokens, what does this number mean? And then you go dig in the hole and talk about, and you learn about prime numbers and cryptography. But that's, unfortunately for me, as much as I'd love it, that's a conversation for another day. So Jim, let's dive straight in. So one thing I wanted to call out, I saw your blog post recently where you got stranded in South Korea at an airline, which I mean, everyone's been delayed at airports and flights and things. I think your experience was a little unique, which I'd like you to dive into in just a moment. What it really highlighted to me was our dependency on technology today. Now, that specific incident, it could have happened to any tech provider, anyone that writes software, sells software, provides services. Could you give us some insight on what your thoughts are on the broader issue of global outages and their relationship with resiliency, please?
Yeah, Dan, absolutely. And, I want to stress that my blog was not really a knock on any particular technology company. It was obviously, the world famous CrowdStrike issue as it stands today. But really what I wanted to highlight was, as you say, the dependency on technology in the global economy, in the world that we live in, and really its fragility. I've had this conversation many times since publishing that blog, but I think it's best described by the butterfly effect, right? It's one small mistake or one small issue, somebody pressed the wrong button, somebody did the wrong thing, and the cascading impact of that. And that really goes to your point of, how dependent and how interwoven technology is in our modern lives. And this I really see as a double-edged sword, right? Technology is great, right? As a technologist, of course, I would say that.
You can't live without it now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's part of the problem. It's a double-edged sword. So yes, it's fantastic. It allows us to do things, think of medical advances, think of science advances, think of everything that we've gained from technology in the last 50 years. But we've also changed the risk that technology creates in our day-to-day lives, right? Might be a delay in an airport, might be unable to check into a hotel, could be something far more important than that. During that outage, various 911 emergency service, numbers and call centers were out of action in the US. Different countries around the world had trouble with allowing people into their countries, border control, immigration. So huge potential impact. So that's really the issue that I wanted to talk about and highlight with that blog is there's this trend that I've seen evolve over the last sort of couple of decades, and that's one of abdicating responsibility to technology, right? We go, oh, it's okay, it's in the cloud, right? Well, what does that mean? What does it mean? How do we ensure that these things won't have such a large negative impact on our lives? So that's really something that, we focus on very much. So obviously, as you said, RSA, very well-known company. We've always been a security company. And so what we focus on is security first, security above all else. But included in that conversation is things like redundancy and resiliency and everything else. You can have the best lock on a door, but if somebody cuts the power and the lock opens, well, it's not a very good lock, right? So how do you ensure these things? So what we see is companies, people, organizations, industries kind of abdicate their responsibilities to technology. And that's a trend that we want to reverse. So finally, in my career, security and particularly identity is now center stage in the conversation. The world has realized through, what's happened in the last sort of 5 or 6 years, the pandemic, growing global geopolitical challenges, security has become important again, right? It always was, but it wasn't necessarily in the limelight. So what we're seeing is this shift in mindset towards a much more security-oriented viewpoint, which we think is great, right? It's the right thing. How do we be safe? How do we address these challenges? As kids, we're all taught, look both ways when you cross the road, right? Don't talk to strangers, right? There are a set of life lessons that are just naturally instilled in us as human beings as we kind of grow and evolve. But we don't have the same rigor. We don't have the same discipline. Where are the lessons about cybersecurity and digital personas? How do we teach our children not to click on links in emails, right? That could be the same as look both ways before you cross the road. So people just go, oh, it's in the cloud, or I don't want to belabor the point, but there's a famous saying in IT. I'm sure you've heard, Dan, right? No one ever got fired for buying IBM.
Oh, absolutely, yes. I still use that one.
Right? So, but what does that mean? Should you buy IBM? Does it meet the need? We all need to reactivate our inner 3-year-old, our toddler, and sit there and ask questions. We encourage our customers that we do business with to ask us questions, right? Look at the vendor and say, what are your resiliency policies? How do you build your software? What are your SaaS ops platforms? What happens if, right? Why? Be that inner toddler again and activate those questions. Don't abdicate your responsibility, own it. Make sure that if the cloud goes down, you have a plan. You have a backup. You have an alternative, right? Resiliency is just as important in security as making sure that you have a backup power supply to the lock is just important as the lock itself.
No,
so that's
absolutely.
That's really what we were trying to highlight with that blog. That blog is, security is something that we all participate in. Own it.
And you've raised some really, really good points there, that this sort of apathy around cloud services. People think, oh, well, now it's in the cloud, it's resilient. And we've seen many cloud outages. And here at Armadillo, we manage, we do manage services, one of them being around RSA. And so we manage on-premise appliances for customers and cloud. And often when we have these conversations about moving to your cloud service, they say, oh, great, so we can remove our 4, 6, 8 appliances that we got on premise. And the answer is absolutely you can, but let's have a conversation about resiliency. Maybe a hybrid mode is what you're looking for, and it's that apathy or that sort of people being quite agnostic to it, because I can wash my hands of the problem, but you are still putting it into a data center. It's just not your data center.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's the big thing that people need to realize is, it doesn't, if you buy cloud, if you migrate into cloud, and by the way, I'm not against cloud. I think it's a fantastic model.
Oh, indeed,
But
yes.
I think, security in layers, strength in depth, right? Overlapping security principles, right? Consider your security posture and make resilience and redundancy part of that. So I very much advocate, hey, listen, you want to move to a SaaS service. There are all sorts of economic and, other reasons for doing that. Great, do that as a business. But what if? Right? What if? Ask those questions and own the answers. Maybe the answer is you put some things on a SaaS cloud service with one cloud provider, and you move some other things. You move some on-prem workloads to a different cloud provider. And so at least you then have a little bit of redundancy. You have a little bit of failover. So I think those are the things that we, preach all the time is, don't assume somebody is going to solve your problem for you. Ensure, ask, challenge, right? We welcome, we often spend a lot of time with our customers, and if they don't ask us what we think are important questions around, how we build and provide our technology, we'll challenge those customers and we'll say, no, hey, why didn't you ask this? Like, why aren't you asking this? You should ask this. Don't you want to know what our redundancy and failover policies are? Don't you want to know the security controls we have around the way we build our software? Own that. Vendors want that. Vendors, want their customers to be secure. We don't want to put you in a position where you have made your business vulnerable.
No, fantastic. Now, look, RSA is such a well-known brand, and you've got a huge range of products and services. Now, rather than trying to dive into them, because that's not the objective here, let's talk about how do you approach scalability and security in this sort of new digital world where threats are constantly evolving?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And it's something that we've, kind of wrestled with. And I'll say, about RSA, the core DNA of RSA is innovation. That's where we thrive best. So if you look at RSA's 40+ year history, well, what's RSA known for? What do they do? Well, a new opportunity or a new challenge or a new problem occurs, RSA is usually at the forefront of innovating around what that problem is. And it's no different today, right? The technology or the digital world is going through an evolution. I'm sure, you have enough history to remember when cloud first came out, it was nirvana, right? It was this magic new word that could solve everything. It's like, hey, cloud's gonna be world peace and make the coffee. It's like, that's great, awesome, it does everything.
We're still waiting for that.
Exactly. So, the way that we approach these problems is really from a security first mindset. Our belief is that we hold very dear and are very honored and value the trust that people place in us. Nobody wants to put their money in a bank that doesn't have a door on their vault, right? Trust and security are important. So that's our mission. So we look at the evolving landscape. And if you look at the way technology in the digital world has developed, particularly in security, we go through these phases, right? The Bronze Age, the Iron Age, right? There's an evolutionary process. What we've seen is the world of security was very much about convenience. It was all about, hey, how do I make it easy for Dan to access something? How do I enable this, right? And that's great, but we kind of lost and securely in that conversation for a period of time. The pendulum is now swinging back towards security, right? Now security is becoming more important than convenience. We saw that, a year or two ago with the prompt bombing attacks. People would send mass, password storms or prompt storms
MFA,
towards a user, and eventually you just get frustrated and you click OK. So what did the security industry do? We added code matching. We added, number appears on your device, number appears on your screen. You have to, perform a conscious action. Well, you could argue that's slightly less convenient. We're adding some friction into the user experience, but we're dramatically improving the security. So there's always been this balance between flexibility, convenience, and security. And so I think that balance was tipped a little too much towards convenience for a period of time. It's now addressing, yes, it's important that things are easy. Yes, it's important that user experience is good, but it's equally or more important that things are secure. So that's how we develop everything. That's our mindset. We look at the challenges and we say, what's the secure option? Now, how do we make that easy? How do we make that compelling? But don't give up on security. So we developed a hybrid architecture for the cloud dilemma. And I would say we're fairly unique in that we're one of the companies that has a hybrid and as opposed to a hybrid or
yes.
architecture. A lot of cloud companies will come to you and say, hey, yeah, we do hybrid. You can either be on-prem or in the cloud. We don't say that. We say that's not our business. Our customers should be able to consume the technology in any way that makes sense to them. Right? Fits their business model, meets the needs of their company. And they should be able to do that in a way and get the same functionality in whatever environment they choose to run. So we deploy a hybrid and environment, which a lot of our customers use. And the great thing about it, and this is one of my favorite, it creates an aha moment whenever I'm in a conversation with a customer, and the way we describe it is, hey, if the cloud goes down, we fell back to on-prem. If on-prem goes down, we fell back to the cloud. If on-prem and the cloud go down, we have an architecture that does a certain amount of caching. We fell back to the agents. If the cloud, on-prem, and the agents go down, you should consider leaving the building because we're probably not the problem.
Yes.
So
you'll bigger things to worry about.
Exactly. It's that mindset of what if, right? How do I own the responsibility of making sure that my company can operate no matter what is going on, no matter what the environment. So that's our kind of core DNA. We love to innovate and solve those types of problems. And everything that we do is around that. I'll give you another example, Dan. So pandemic hit, everybody started working from home, right? Remote workforces, mobile workforces, this work from anywhere mentality. I have to be able to do anything from any device, anywhere in the world, at any time. Okay, great. All of a sudden, companies have lost a little bit of control. I'm not necessarily controlling the device that you're accessing from. BYOD, great example. So we looked at that problem and said, okay, we don't want to do something that's intrusive. Dan, you're using your own personal phone. You don't want an MDM or something like that to control that device. You don't want to risk your family photos being wiped by the company. So let's do this. Let's incorporate a threat assessment of the device in real time at the time of access. When you go to access a corporate asset, we look at the device that you're accessing it from. We do a threat assessment of that device. We say, hey, is it jailbroken? Has it got the latest version of software on? Is there malware running on the device? Let's get a picture of the thing that Dan is accessing from, and let's incorporate that into our security policy. Maybe we don't want you to access because you've got malware on your device. Maybe we don't want you to have write access. We only want to grant you read access because you haven't deployed the latest version of security patches. So we're enabling you in that anytime, anywhere, any form to be able to do the things that you need to do. But we're ensuring that your organization can maintain its security posture.
And it's that real-time sort of posture management. Yes, so we've got some customers that use it, and it's fantastic because it enables them rather to bring your own device or work from home or even an iPad or their phone, and yet you're not sacrificing security or making things just too difficult for a customer.
Yes, yeah, and I think that's a hugely important mindset, right? If I go back to what I said at the beginning, the world is shifting to a security focus. That's a good thing, right? We're in a position where we've seen the challenges of bad security, right? Unfortunately, I get stuck in airports around the world. We see headlines every day, right? It's a challenging digital world that we live in right now. We need to strike that balance of being more secure, having the right levels of security, redundancy, resiliency, and enabling people to do what they need to do, right? A little less convenience for a whole lot more security, I think, is a fair and reasonable trade. You want the flexibility. 100%. If you want the flexibility to do anything from anywhere, okay, that's great. I agree. We should provide that flexibility for you. But I'm going to ask you to do a couple of things just to ensure the security of the organization. It's a fair trade, I believe.
No, I completely agree with you, Jim. I completely agree. So I know we're always running low on time on these, and I could go on for a long time. I've got one more question just to change gears a little bit. So a friend of mine who is a security writer, CISO and various other things, he used a phrase recently which really stuck with me. He said, identity is the new perimeter. Now, it's not a brand new phrase. I understand the background to it, but I'd never heard anyone articulate it quite that way. And to me, we know that the users can still be the weakest link in the security chain. And that's not an intentional thing. That's human nature. So if we look a little bit ahead in the RSA world, what innovations or new features can we expect from yourself and your team around that sort of identity field over the next year or 18 months?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So first of all, Dan, I want to just correct you just a little bit. You said users can be, or could be. So users are the problem.
I was being kind.
Right? People are the problem. We could solve security tomorrow if we just got rid of all of the people, right? If there were no people involved, security would be easy, right? But that's not reality. So yes, identity is the new perimeter, but identity is also the old perimeter. If you really think about the fundamentals, break everything down to its simplest form, what are we trying to do? And particularly in identity, I love identity because it's one of those rare spaces where the problem has not changed. What's changed is the environment in which we must solve that problem.
Okay.
And it's constantly changing, right? Think about if you were, a knight on a horse 1,000 years ago, right? You would ride up to the castle. Would they let you in? No, they'd say, raise your visor. You'd lift your visor. They'd go, oh, it's Dan. Then they'd let you in. That's identity, right? The problem of keeping the bad guys out and letting the good guys in is what we fundamentally do. In the new technology world, that problem has become much more difficult to solve because now it's keyboards, not horses.
Yes.
It's not a server. I can't put a big hairy guy in front of the server room, with a baton to keep everybody out. My services are running all over the place and they move all over all the time. So yeah, identity is the perimeter. There are two, if you're a believer in zero trust, the two core pillars of zero trust, identity and data.
Yes.
Right? What are the people? What are they trying to access? And what is the stuff that they're trying to access? If I can solve those two problems, if I can make those two pillars secure, then I have a good security posture. So what are we doing? Well, we very much believe in that mindset, as I said. And so we're looking at, okay, what do people want to do? Why are people the problem? And I would argue people are the problem because the security industry made them the problem, right? We asked them to use long and complex passwords. What did they do? Well, all we did was drove the stock of Post-it notes through the roof. Right? We were great investors in that industry. Oh my God, I've got to remember a 20 character uppercase, lowercase, special character password. I'm going to write that down, right?
So the post-it manufacturers have a lot to be thankful for.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So what are we doing? Well, we're looking at new ways to improve security, right? And make it easy for the user. Don't make it complicated. Don't make it confusing. If you do, just like water, they'll find the easiest path. Okay, they'll write it down. They'll share it. They'll do whatever they need to do because it's complex. So we've become very big proponents of standards and things like that. We're heavily invested in FIDO, passkeys, secure credentials, indelible credentials. We're heavily invested in things like access management. How do we make single sign-on secure? How do we segregate assets? So if one thing is compromised, you can't instantly jump across. So a lot of the innovation that we're focused on is around that. So we're just in the process of introducing some new token capabilities that make it much easier to use with capabilities, things like NFC. Right? I don't have to type anything in. Yeah. I don't have to plug anything in, right? I just have to be within a few feet of my device, and my absolutely secure credential will do that authentication for me. We're doing a lot of work across the industry. We're doing a lot of work with Microsoft. I have to give Microsoft some credit. They launched their new EAM program, the External Authentication Mechanisms program, allowing specialist security vendors to plug into the Microsoft ecosystem and provide that additional layer of security. So a whole raft of innovation that you can expect to see coming from us that's all focused around how do I still make it usable for a human, right? As much as I'd like to get rid of them all, I can't. How do I make it so that people can do what they need to do, but do it securely?
Fantastic. Jim, as I said, I'd love to keep talking. It's been fascinating. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. So with that, thank you very much indeed for your time and your answers and the conversation. And speak to you soon.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Dan, and thanks to you guys at Armadillo for everything that you do.
Absolutely.
It takes a village, and security is a community. So we're very proud to be in partnership with you guys.
Thank you very much. All right,
thanks, Dan. See you soon.